What's up, everybody? AJ Khatchaturian here with the third episode of the Armenian Sports News Podcast, coming at you from Boston, Massachusetts. Going solo today, Jason Taktagian, usually my co-host, unable to make it today. He is moving from Iowa to Fresno to start his new career as a reporter there. Hope to see him back soon. But until then, I'm going to be going solo today. All the weight of the world on my shoulders as I try to do this podcast on my own, Colin Cowherd style. And we have a lot to talk about. We're going to begin today's show with the world's biggest tease, the Armenian national football team. Armenia had a pair of international friendlies this week, last week against Kosovo, and the day this is being recorded, Tuesday, March 26th, against Czech Republic. They lost both. First loss against Kosovo, an embarrassing 1-0 defeat against a team you should have defeated. And then they follow that up with this is why I call them the biggest tease in sports right now. They scored the first goal, took a 1-0 lead, and they blew it and lost 2-1 on the road in Prague against the Czech Republic. For the fifth time since the start of 2023, Armenia has had a lead in a soccer game, and they've either lost or tied. They've blown the lead. 5 times that's happened. It happened twice against Turkey during the Euro qualifiers. They scored first in the first game. They lost 2-1. Happened in the friendly against Cyprus. They had the lead 2-1, and the game ended in a 2-2 draw. Then against Turkey again, they scored first. Game ended in a 1-1 draw. Against Wales in the European qualifiers, scored first, ended in a draw. And of course, on Tuesday, scored first against Czech Republic, ended in a loss, 2-1 loss. And these games for Armenia are a microcosm of the Football Federation of Armenia, the Armenian football national team, over the last 3 to 4 years. Let's go back in time to 2021. There's a time where Armenia was actually turning into a legitimate European contender, believe it or not. There was a time where it wasn't crazy to think that Armenia might make it into the 2022 World Cup. And for sure, Euro 2024. It was April 2021, and Armenia had shown strides of improvement. And they weren't just a pesky opponent. They were beating teams. They were on a 9-match unbeaten streak. 9-match unbeaten streak. The longest unbeaten streak prior to that 9-game unbeaten streak was a 4-game unbeaten streak. So this was historic levels. Armenia had a 5-game winning streak. They started off the 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers starting off 3-0. They were leading their table. Vibes were high. Emotions were high. They came off that huge win against Romania, a 3-2 win, comeback victory, and just there's something different in the air. It was like, wow, this Armenian soccer team, this team that might have something brewing. This might be the next up-and-coming country that qualifies the World Cup and does damage, or at least the Euro 2024, and is a significant player. But instead, since that time, since that 9-match unbeaten streak, Armenia has played 31 matches, and they have only won 4 games. 4 wins, 19 losses, 8 draws. I didn't stutter. Instead, they're watching their northern neighbor in the Caucasus, Georgia, qualify for the Euro 2024, and instead Armenia will be sitting at home watching, preparing for the Nations League, which, by the way, they were in League B. They got relegated to League C throughout this whole devastating 31-match run. We keep being told that Lucas Zelarayan is the final piece of the puzzle that Armenia needed that was going to get them over the next step. We keep being told about Edward Spertian, Grant Leon Ranos, so many other Armenian soccer pages keep bragging about how great these guys are. We haven't seen anything from these guys. And whatever, they're young, maybe they'll develop, maybe they'll be good, but don't call them the next Henrikh Mkhitaryan. Which, let's talk about Henrikh Mkhitaryan. If you want to point to one specific event for the downfall of the Armenian national football team, you have to go back to April 2021. It was in the middle of Armenia's great run. They had won 5 in a row, and they had a friendly match coming up against Croatia, which is one of the top teams in the world. And during that 5-game winning streak, Armenia didn't have their star player Mkhitaryan. He was injured. So right when he was ready to come back for that friendly against Croatia, he was left off the squad, and he was not happy. He came out and made a statement saying that month in April 2021, he said, "To my surprise, I received information from the coaching staff of the Armenian national football team that for unknown reasons, I am not invited to the national team for the upcoming international matches. The official justifications presented are not convincing to me." That's Henrikh Mkhitaryan saying that. Usually a calm guy, usually a guy who's not going to upset the apple cart, usually a guy who's a good soldier, he's going to go out there and do his job. When you think of Henrikh Mkhitaryan, you don't think of a guy who's going to be outspoken and cause drama. He's not that kind of guy. But he said that. Those were his words. Clearly not a happy man. Mkhitaryan would return for the 7 remaining World Cup qualifiers. Armenia did not win a single match, and they ended up canning head coach Joaquin Caparros. After that, Mkhitaryan surprisingly comes out and announces he's retiring from the national team. And he hasn't played since then. Didn't give a reason why he retired from the team, but he's clearly not an old guy. He's clearly a fantastic player for Inter Milan. They've won European Cups with Mkhitaryan at the helm. They've been in the Champions League. They've played in big games. He's performed well. So he easily would be the best player on the squad right now. But for whatever reason, he came out and said he doesn't want to play. I'm a believer, when there's smoke, there's fire. There was never any real reason why Mkhitaryan left, but he was left off the team against Croatia, leading me to believe, again, none of this is reported, I'm only speculating, but there must have been some conflict between the Federation and Mkhitaryan. And, when you think of the Federation, you don't really think of this well-run organization, well-oiled machine. We've seen what's happened since Mkhitaryan's left. They fired their coach. They've won 4 matches in the last 3 years, and their young guys aren't taking that next step to be the leaders of the team. So now it's a sad day for Armenian football. They're losing matches they should win. They're blowing leads they should hold. They have no leadership, and they're managed very poorly. On to some good news. Edmen Shahbazyan, UFC middleweight, came back to the octagon after a long layoff and delivered. He was favored to win, but he delivered against AJ Dobson, first-round knockout, like we've seen so many times. Shahbazyan was one of the fastest up-and-comers in the UFC. He was undefeated, 10 or 11-0, and then it just crashed. He lost 3 straight fights, 4 of his last 5. And over the last 4 years, he's not ranked anymore. He's still in the UFC and came out with a big statement win. And honestly, when you look at Shahbazyan early on in his career, when he was 20, 21 years old, going on that run, he was very timid and shy in these UFC press conferences, where a lot of these fighters show a lot of personality. But he was more reserved, more shy, short answers. But you're really seeing a lot more of the real Edmen Shahbazyan now. He lost 4 of his last 5 fights. He has no pressure anymore. He's coming out there. There was no more pressure of being this undefeated guy who's going to go storm through everyone and be the next middleweight champion. Less pressure on him. You're seeing more of his personality. He seems happier in the octagon. And here is Shahbazyan after his win.
I thought it was a good performance. Battling through adversity is something I kept telling myself, whatever happens, I'm going to go in there and battle through it, whatever happens, and I'm going to come out with the win. And ultimately, that's what happened. I'm always kill or be killed in there. So, I'm glad I took this time off from my last fight to make some improvements, get better. And after the fight was done, I'm like, damn, I can keep going.
Definitely good to see and exciting to see. And I think sometimes losing helps you, especially when you're a young fighter. It puts that pressure off you, and you go out there and you do your thing, and with less of a burden, you're able to accomplish more. And this might be good for him. He's only 25 years old. He said in his presser that he still has a lot of fighting left. Now we're going to move on to 5 college athletes that I want to talk about in the 4 major American sports. And if you're from America, the 4 major sports. It's not soccer. Soccer's not one of them. It's football, American football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. So I'm going to highlight 4 collegiate athletes, 5, who are in the news right now for They're Armenian guys, and they all made the headlines this past week. Let's start with hockey. Aram Minnetian, Boston College defenseman. The Boston College Eagles, they won the Hockey East tournament, which is the conference that Boston College is in college hockey. They won their tournament championship by defeating Boston University. It was not even close. Minnetian scored a goal in the semifinal, and now the team is ranked number 1 in the country. They've been number 1 in the country for a while, and they're getting ready to start the national tournament, which starts soon. So Minnetian obviously has been a big part of that team this year. He's a defenseman. He was drafted by the Dallas Stars in 2023. He's in their system. The Dallas Stars hold his rights. But a lot of times what happens with these NHL draft picks is they're drafted by their team. They don't immediately go into the NHL like they do in football. They either go back to college or their junior league, and they develop there before the team signs them to their squad. So Minnetian doing a great job developing at BC. Excellent, excellent news. Now in the world of basketball, the national tournament, the NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness has begun. Wisconsin was one of the teams. Obviously, Wisconsin's point guard is Connor Essegian. And Essegian and Wisconsin flamed out in the first round. They were eliminated. And shortly thereafter, Essegian came out with a statement that he's entering the NCAA transfer portal, which means he's seeking another school to play for next year. Kind of a shocker when you look at that, because Essegian was a big part of Wisconsin's team in 2023. He was the team was building around him, and now in 2024 didn't receive as much playing time, even though he did make his Armenian national team debut. In 2024, Essegian kind of coming off the bench more, not getting that much playing time. He didn't even play in the March Madness game, so who knows? Maybe he was disgruntled from that and is seeking new opportunities at a different school where will be getting more playing time. He definitely handled it with class. His statement was he thanked the University of Wisconsin, he thanked the city of Madison and Wisconsin and the coaching staff. He did it the right way. Very classy guy, and it's exciting to see where he'll end up next. Moving to baseball now, and now this is my favorite story of the week. I was sitting on my couch and get a text from my cousin, Eric Khatchaturian, in Los Angeles. Great guy. He's not a sports reporter or anything like that. He's not a journalist. He's a builder. He builds buildings, great buildings in Los Angeles. EKLA Construction. Follow him on Instagram. Get a text from Eric saying that he was filling out his March Madness bracket and trying to figure out who was going to win the James Madison versus Wisconsin matchup. So he searched James Madison on Google and got an article pop up, not a basketball article, a baseball article. And the article's headline was, Hacopian's Grand Slam leads the University of Maryland over James Madison. So he clicks on it and sends it to me, and I see, oh, there's an Armenian player on the University of Maryland, baseball player. And he hit this big home run to lead his team to victory. And I read more about him, and I find out that this guy, his name is Chris Hacopian, hasn't just been playing well, he's been playing out of his mind. And oh, guess what? He has a brother too, Eddie Hacopian, and they're the two best players on the team, basically. They hit home runs, they produce runs, they get on base, high batting averages. Both of them are hitting over 350, and it's exciting to watch. It's really exciting to watch. You can watch some of their highlights on the Armenian Sports News Instagram page, and I'm sure they're going to be generating a lot more highlights this spring and into the summer. That'll be exciting to see, and it's good to see Armenian athletes, and that's the best part, because when you're an Armenian, you always like to see Armenians succeed and in sports. And sometimes it's hard to find out who's playing where, especially at the collegiate level. There's so many schools with athletic programs. So this is definitely a great find. I can't wait to track these brothers and hopefully have them on the ASN podcast someday. But this week's guest on the ASN podcast is a guy we've talked to before on ASN, Bubba Arslanian of the University of Akron football team. And this is the fourth sport we're talking about, football. He's a linebacker, very talented linebacker. He is been preparing all year long for the NFL draft, which is next month. And we had a great conversation with him earlier, and we're going to play that for you right now. So take it away. Joined now by a special guest on the ASM podcast, former linebacker for the University of Akron. He was the 2022 All-MAC first team and an honorable mention that year as an All-American. And that year and his entire collegiate career, in fact, he was a tackling machine. He had the 10th most tackles in the NCAA that year in 2022. And he's joining us now today. He is Bubba Arslanian. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Andre. I appreciate you having me back on the podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us. And, we first met about 3-4 years ago. I believe the first time I watched you play was actually by accident. It was during the COVID pandemic season in 2020. And it was one of those Tuesday night Maction games you guys were playing. And I remember watching the game and seeing a young kid go out there and make a big tackle. And then you get up and I see the name on the back of your jersey, Arslanian. I'm like, oh man, this guy's Armenian. I need to learn more about this guy. And then shortly after launching this page, you were one of our first guests that year. And ever since then, you went on to have an illustrious career with Akron. I mentioned all the accolades that you were able to accomplish. But your last season, you decided to skip your final year and focus on preparing for the NFL draft, which is next month in April. What made you decide to do that?
Yeah, so for me personally, I wasn't able to obtain my 7th year of eligibility. NCAA didn't allow me to grant that, so I really didn't have an option. I wish I could have been out there this year. Put up some more numbers and be a team player for Akron again, and be there for my teammates. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. But God put me in the position I was. I prepared this whole last year, just training hard, working my butt off, doing everything that I could to put myself in a position to take that next step, to play in the NFL, to make a team, to make a roster, and really make an impact on anywhere that I put my foot in the door.
So that's pretty frustrating because you're trying to prepare for the draft, but all these other people, all these other players, they're getting airtime on national TV and things of that nature. And you can kind of be out of sight, out of mind. How did you kind of make sure you were still, out there and preparing so you wouldn't be quote unquote forgotten, I guess?
Yeah, so I was connected with an agent. His name is Neil Cornrich. He's a local guy for me. He's been in the industry for several years. He's a pretty pronounced name. His agent was one of his clients was Bill Belichick. He's had several other big time clientele, and he knows that industry very well. Neil has been in the industry. He's very well known. So I believe in him. I believe in his work and his connections, that he'll be able to put me in the right position. So that's promising for me to continue to put in that work, daily, weekly, and monthly. So I make my deposits, and he invests in me as well. So it's kind of an equal partnership, and looking forward to what we can accomplish.
And definitely make the right connections there. And obviously, you also had the pro day in Akron, which was earlier this month. How do you think your pro day went? How did you feel?
Yeah, I felt awesome about it. I've been training for a whole year for this, and kind of putting it all together on one day is what it comes down to. I think I was able to do that. For my bench, for 225 for bench, I hit it 27 times. Vertical was a 34 and a half. Broad jump was a 9'7". 40 was a 4.75, which isn't my fastest I've ran. I've ran a 4.68 before, so wasn't exactly pleased with that. But we'll take what we can do on any given day. I felt very comfortable out on the field doing my position work. Have been practicing that yearly and all year round. And for my previous years playing, it doesn't just leave you. Your ability is stay within you, and don't try to do too much on one certain day. Stay within your ability. You've been doing this for your whole life, so I was comfortable. I was relaxed. I was able to be with those people that I have been out on that field with, played with, and it was fun to connect with them again as well.
Absolutely. And one other thing, a big advantage for you is you're healthy, right? You didn't get hit all year long, and you were able to kind of get your body in tip-top shape, whereas other players, it's a violent sport, and you've had your fair share of injury histories as well. So how does that feel to kind of just be 100% healthy right now? Assuming.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a great feeling. Having your body at 100%, being able to perform to your full ability, there's nothing like it. It's kind of like, we always used to say when you started camp, in the previous fall or whenever it may be, summer, you start hitting again. This is as healthy as you're going to be all year. So, it's nice to kind of have that break on the body and, be ready to roll once I get the opportunity coming forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I want to do something quick with you. So pretend I'm an NFL executive, and I know your background. I know you haven't played this past year. So I ask you, Bubba, why should I draft you to my team? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, myself, I believe I'm one of the hardest workers in the room. If you put me up against anybody, I'm going to challenge them. I'm going to give them everything I have. And, most of the time, majority of the time, I'm going to come out on top. On top of that, I'm also very team oriented. Whatever the team is going to need, I'm willing to do. I'm willing to sacrifice anything that, you ask me to do. And then, on top of that, I'm gonna bring a positive attitude every day. You know what I mean? I'm gonna elevate people around me, not only myself. I'm not gonna be self-oriented. Like I said, I'm going to focus on the team, what the team needs. I'm gonna elevate others around me. I feel like I have a lot of experience as well.
And I feel like you kind of just touched upon this, but what else do you think that you feel puts you above other talented players that are going to get drafted this year?
Yeah, I mean, my work ethic is kind of one of the main things I pride myself on. Showing up every day, being able to do that, and being able to produce on that field as well.
And so now at this point, what expectations do you have going forward towards the draft? And then there's that whole unsigned, not unsigned, undrafted free agency process. What expectations do you have? What are you going to be doing from now until then?
Yeah, really, I'm going to trust my agent. I've been flattered with all the connections of teams and everything, but I let my agent do his job. He's very good at it, and trust his abilities, trust his connections, and trust his gut feelings of, hey, I think you should go here. I think you should do here. These are the opportunities that have been presented to us, and kind of go from there. Take it one step at a time, and allow for him to kind of give me that guidance of experience that he has in the industry as well.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why I love your story and how it resonates is I feel like, you've always kind of been the underdog in your career. I think it's just kind of like the Armenian story. Armenians are always the underdog. And here you are, you're at a small university, in a small conference, maybe be overlooked nationally. What has all of that taught you kind of just with now, and especially now with, you for what your final season and you're kind of off the radar again. So what is, maybe being overlooked over the years. So what has that taught you, kind of to persevere past that being overlooked?
Yeah, even in high school, Akron was my only,
Oh,
place to land that was Division One. And be able to, I came in as a walk-on underdog, coming in there, earned a scholarship within my first month of being on the team. So I mean, I showed up every day. I'm going to compete, and then kind of going forward to now, once again back to underdog. Haven't really had any opportunity to prove myself that this year, I still am one of the premier linebackers in this class, and it's just something I carry with me throughout my whole life. Throughout these 6 years, high school, all that stuff. I've always been told you're not big enough, you're not strong enough, all this stuff, and I mean, people can say whatever they want, but I know in I have the determination within myself, my heart, and my drive, and I think that I'm going to make an impact on wherever I land, whatever team, whatever organization, takes that chance on me. It's going to be it's not a chance, it's something that's going to land. That's for sure.
one of the great things about sports, I think, is the work ethic. You can measure it. It's the stats show it, the numbers show it. Your tackle numbers are routinely at the top of the NCAA, and I guess the only exception is if you're an offensive lineman, then there's not really stats for that. But how does that happen? I guess, like, how do you rack up so many tackles every game? It's pretty impressive to watch. I remember there was one game against Ohio State. You may have had 17. I might be mistaken, but it was a large number. It was definitely over.
I only played it. I broke my thumb that game too, about second quarter. So I was, 2 quarters in, and I think I had maybe 12 tackles by then, something like that. Yeah.
But,
So
but that's kind of like a big game, right? Like, you're playing Ohio State, everyone's watching that, and you stepped up to the highest level in that game. How does that, put in all that work ethic and everything? So it's pretty impressive that you're able to do that, right?
yeah, week in, week out. I mean, I'm constantly, I'm going to be watching film. I'm working with my coaches, put myself in those best positions possible, to know, when I see this look, I get this look, or they motion this certain way. This is what's going to come and be on my plate. And I think I've been able to handle that, especially having more experience as I've gotten older throughout the years. I've gotten more comfortable, especially. Um, but having a nose for the ball is the biggest thing. You know what I mean? Instincts take over as well. Preparation leads to perfection, or perfect play. So being able to put all that together has kind of really been my biggest key. And just having that show up every other week.
That's fantastic, and there's absolutely a lot of value to that. And now you're a defensive player, you're a linebacker, and obviously the game of football has changed so much over the last 2 decades. And we had in the NFL news come out that the league is banning the swivel hip drop tackle for player safety, and this is pretty controversial. The NFLPA wasn't very happy about it, the Players Association. So first of all, what is a swivel hip drop tackle for those who don't know? And secondly, how do you feel about that as a defensive player, that it was banned?
Yeah. So for the people that don't really know what it is, it's kind of when you wrap around somebody's waist and you kind of tuck them underneath of yourself and bring them down in order to make the tackle. For me personally, I don't really agree with the incorporation of the rule, but I mean, it's inevitable. You got to adapt to the game. It's ever changing, especially in this time of age. But I think it does put the defender at a little bit of a disadvantage now. It's they've been limiting more and more about how a defender can bring down an offensive player. It's kind of it's changing the game of how you can play. It's limiting our abilities in a way, but you got to look out for other players and their safety at the same time. And looking at that, you kind of agree that it does put people in vulnerable positions. But you're going to have to make a tackle on a big guy, and sometimes you just got to square him up and let everybody else rally to you. You know what I mean? But we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting to see what other people think as well.
It's interesting that you just said that, though, because intuitively you're saying, okay, you're getting rid of these swivel hip drop tackles. It's going to lessen leg injuries. But you just mentioned, okay, so now you have to square up and hit them. Doesn't that cause more helmet to helmet trauma? So it's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me, because now you're putting your head in danger.
Yeah.
Counterintuitive. That's the word. So am I dumb for thinking that? Or
no? I mean, it's it's going to be a year of adaptation, that's for sure. They're going to see how many flags maybe get thrown.
right.
How well people can adapt to not using this type of tackle and incorporating different types. It's going to be an interesting year for the game for sure. Not sure if they. I mean, it's pretty much set for the year, so we'll see. If it continues on and it lasts. But
right, and it's just, how do you feel personally as a defensive player that how much the game has shifted to offense? How does it? I'm sure you don't like it as a defensive player, but a lot of people say, "Oh, it takes away from the game. The game's changed. We're playing flag football now." And I get the whole player safety aspect of it, but as a guy who's on the field every Saturday. How does that make you feel that the game continues to shift to so much offense?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, growing up, I was watching, Friday nights, or Thursday nights before like a high school game or something like that. I'd watch big hit highlights, even my freshman, sophomore, junior year of college. I'd pull up a Ray Lewis highlight tape or a Brian Urlacher tape or Patrick Willis or any of the, guys that are laying the wood out there. So I was always, hard nosed going in. I want to drill somebody. I want to, put a hurting on them. I want them to feel me even the next day. But just seeing the game change, it's been interesting for sure. But you see some people, the aftermath of it all and stuff. You see what they're looking out for, and you want the best for everybody. But it's been tough to adapt. Definitely. I want to continue to see the game be played. And, the way it's kind of going, you hear people say it's turning into flag football. It's going to turn into flag football. But, you hope you don't see it.
at the end of the day, like I kind of disagree with that crowd, the flag football crowd, because if you look at it in the NFL this year, the Chiefs who won the Super Bowl, they won because of their defense. And the 49ers had a great defense. So you still need a good defense. You got to stop the offense somehow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this year. So, but yeah. Anyway, I want to shift gears here. Obviously, you're Armenian, and we've talked about your Armenian background briefly before. First of all, what does it mean to just get so much support from not just Akron, not just the state of Ohio, but Armenians all around the country who know about you, and they maybe be in your comment section when you post something or anything like that, or message you? Like, what does it mean to get that support from Armenians around the country?
Yeah, I look back. So my great grandpa made it over. My great grandparents, grandpa and grandmother, both made it on the boat. They made it to Cuba, and then they made it to America, where they started our family. So having, I carry them with me. I think about them all the time. I do this for, my people that are still here and are not with me as well. But having that backing, having that authentic background, stand with me is awesome. I look at that. I'm very proud of, when I see that flag, I see just passion behind everybody. It means the world to me. And I like to continue to spread that awareness of, hey, this is who we are. These are the kind of people that, our character, that comes with us. And it's not just me. I'm sure, it's our whole community that, is proud of us and proud of each other, where we come from and, what we can do.
And it absolutely sets, your role models, your parents, your grandparents, great grandparents, it's that whole underdog mentality. Do you think they kind of instilled that into you?
Yeah, I really do. Throughout my whole life, it's been a battle. So I'm glad I can continue, showing, expressing who we are, and just the passion that we carry.
And it's to my understanding that you also had an Armenian teammate back in the day at Akron. How did you find that out? I want to hear this story.
Yeah. So his name was Bryce Peterson. So it was his mom's side, actually, that had the Armenian authenticity. So we were sitting around one day. We were sitting in the hot tub, doing our contrast baths and stuff, ice tub and hot tub. And he goes, are you Armenian, man? And I'm like, yeah, I am, very proud. And, he goes, I am too. It's awesome to, finally have a teammate like this, because it's very rare to find athletes that are, especially at the Division I level, so it was cool to have a buddy, and he's still a very good friend of mine. Yeah. So shout out to Bryce when you see this. Yeah.
I love Bryce. Great guy. He's been a big supporter of the ASN page, and they interviewed him once before too. Amazing dude. But yeah, this has been great, Bubba. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to talk to us, and I know you have a bright future ahead of you, and I'm really hoping and praying for the best, and good luck in the next couple months. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, thank you, Andre. I always love coming on here and giving back with you.
I appreciate it, man. What a great conversation. Bubba's a great guy. It's a second or third time now that we've interviewed him. Just a down-to-earth dude, as you saw in that interview, and all the best to him. It's so hard to get drafted in the NFL. It's such a if you haven't done anything for me lately, your draft stock just plummets, and it really hurts Arslanian that he hasn't played this year. But hopefully a scout sees something in him. They take a chance on it in the draft or as an undrafted free agent. He's a hardworking guy, and that's all you can ask for from a young athlete. And maybe he works his butt off and gets his way into an NFL roster. That'll be exciting to see. We haven't, we've obviously seen some NFL players who have Armenian heritage, like Brock Purdy and Patrick McCarry. Maybe Bubba Arslanian is the next one. We'll see about that. But what a great show we had today. Thank you again for Bubba for joining us. And until next time, see you later.